Hello, my name is Amanda Foxon-Hill and this is Suddenly Autistic, my vlog where I am sharing insights and updates around what it's like, what it has been like for me to be somebody who's late diagnosed autistic and also has ADHD and some anxiety disorder and complex PTSD. I'm going to talk today about capacity. This is the first video that I've made for 2025 and we're into February now, and it's the first time that I've really felt able to tackle another video for one thing or one reason or another. Life has started off this year pretty good, not too bad at all, but there's been a lot going on, and I've had a couple of cold sores this last couple of weeks, which is very much showing me that my body had overstepped its capacity. So I want to talk about capacity, what that means and what that's meant for me in particular in this vlog. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, then join me. Capacity. It's a funny old word, isn't it? And it's something that I've thought about. I always wanted, when I say I always wanted, it sounds like I don't know, I'm past it. I'm kind of not. But I suppose one thing that I've strived towards in my whole life is balance. I have felt the need for balance and trying to settle on that middle ground, that middle path, which is something that's talked about in, I know it's talked about in Buddhism. I'm not a Buddhist, but it's talked about in Buddhism. Like balancing, like that, getting that sweet spot and all of that. It seems to me to be not only a great sort of metaphorical space, but something that practically a lot of people strive for, me included. So how do I get my life into balance? I suppose to understand why that resonated so much with me and has and still does to a point, it's important to understand what life felt like before, or what life feels like when one doesn't achieve balance in any given time point. And for me, that's very much an upping and downing, a turbulence in my capacity. That means my mental capacity, so how much I can think about, how much and then and process. That's a big thing. So it's almost like I wake up some days and I have the brain that I recognize as me, which is pretty active, wants to understand things, very curious, lots of energy, not too much, a good amount of energy, and really up for it in the day, want to get out there and do something. That's my normal state. When I am getting a little elevated in my energy stores, or my mental state is coming away from that balance point for me in an elevated way, then I can find myself with a lot of racing thoughts, finding it difficult to sleep and calm down, feeling on edge and wired and driven by a motor, which is the words that are in the ADHD criteria. I definitely feel that. But that to me is a symptom, is something that is a somatic realization of when I'm out of kilter. It's not actually my mental state, because my natural, I suppose, healthy, I should say, rather than natural, my healthy state is to wake up with a lot of capacity. Nikki, come back here, my dog is now, I can't. One of the reasons I struggle to make videos and have taken so long to make this is because of the sound quality and everything. I live in quite a noisy place now compared to where I did before. Even actually, no, it was noisy there too. And there was different distractions. But the distractions here, sometimes the noise can be very loud. Sometimes if a dog's barking, I get put off. Can't remember what I was saying and everything goes kaput. And then there's technical things that can happen with sound. So anyway, that's what was happening. I'm trying to remember my thread. I was talking about capacity and when it goes high and what's the middle. I don't know whether I finished that thread, but anyway, I'll move on to the low. When I'm becoming less mentally well, the bottom falls out of my mental capacity a little bit, and it can be very difficult for me to think through and achieve life skills, I guess you'd call it, life skills. So for example, working out what food we need for a shop, to go to the shops, is quite challenging. I might be able to make a list, that's fine, but then I might forget to take the list, or I often forget to take the list, or when I'm in the shops I abandon everything because it's too overwhelming, can't find things, lose my list, forget my list, whatever. There's lots of things, or get home and realize that I missed actually the 2 or 3 things that I actually really needed. There's also physical lack of capacity, so I become much more clumsy and prone to hurting myself by falling over, dropping things, breaking things, etc. There's a kind of manic, if you like, and then a whatever the other one is, catatonic. Catatonic. It's not manic and catatonic. They are words with meaning in mental health spaces, and I'm not a mental health practitioner. I'm a person with mental health issues, as well as with a normal no, there's no such thing as normal with my brain, which has its very own needs, or requires its very own user manual to keep safe and well. So capacity to me is basically can be summed up as, some days I wake up and I feel pretty in the zone and can do things, and it's all fairly healthy, and I can calm down at night and I can go to sleep. Sometimes I wake up and I have nothing in the tank. Mood wise, I have to say my moods are separate, so I don't wake up in a bad mood when I have low capacity. I wake up as in my normal curious mood, but I have no tools in the toolkit to do the thing. So I want to do stuff. I love life and I want to get out, and I think everything's beautiful and nice and engaging, but I go into my bag of brain to pull something out, to do something, and there's nothing there. It's like I left it at home or somewhere. There's other noises now. You would have heard a motorbike go by, and there's an aeroplane. I'm not sure how much this microphone picks up, but it's distracting me a little bit. I'm going to keep going with it because, yeah, I think it's important for me actually to persist through this, because this is a reality of me making videos in this space, that there are things going by. I am in suburbia here, although it's in the Blue Mountains, beautiful Blue Mountains, lovely garden, beautiful spot, but we do have the highway and a train line that goes out the front, which I love. I actually love the cadence. I love the rhythm of the trains. It's extremely soothing actually, and it can place you, it can ground you, and that's another thing. So capacity, when I start to lose my capacity, I lose my sense of time and space. So I have a more distant relationship to my sense of being within my body. So it's like a level of dissociation, you'd call it, and it is a dissociative symptom. And I also find it hard to keep track of objective time, the time on the clock, and calendar time, so the days. So what will often happen, I had it just now at work, is that I will find that the month feels like in my head that it's, instead of, Nikki, can you leave it? Sorry, I don't know. Yeah, anyway. So instead of a month being, well, we're February now, so it's like, what, 28 days, I think it is this month. Instead of it feeling like 28 days and you've got these weeks ahead of you to plan, I have a few things on this month, hence the breakout of cold sore, etc. And all of a sudden that 28 days seems to squish into my brain like it's 7, and I can't. I'm overwhelmed, there's a lot on, the space between the things disappears. So I have events on, and it is like somebody has pulled, like that whole thing where people come and pull the tablecloth. It feels a bit like that in my mind, that the tablecloth has gone, but things didn't stay where they were, spread out evenly across 4 weeks. They actually all came together in a crush, and now you've got this crush of stuff, and you don't know where one thing starts and another thing ends, what comes first and what comes last, and how to tackle that and put it back together. And what's more, you've got no energy to do it. I'm gonna have to shut my dog up. It's, Nikki, could you just stop barking? Nikki, it's because there's another dog somewhere barking, maybe, I don't know, but she just does this, as you may be able to hear, this low level woof every now and then, like really pathetic sort of, I don't know, maybe I'm sounding too judgy about my dog, but I'm getting really anxious now because I kind of feel like if I don't get this done now, it won't get done. And that's not the way I wanted to make these videos, but it's also very, very much the way my brain works sometimes. And but probably it's a good thing to make a video about because it's real. So yes, what's happened to me, so that's basically what I wanted to talk about, capacity in that thing, in that sort of realm of reality. As it comes to me, I can see elements of ADHD, traits in that, and I can see definitely elements of the autism in that. And then there's also my personality and my personal, I suppose, what makes my life meaningful and what I want to do, and my intellectual capacity for achieving things, or diving into the stuff that I'm curious about, and then also my metabolic health and my general health, which gives me a certain amount of energy in the tank each day to go out and pursue those things. So all of that comes together, and as I have become more integrated into my new self of knowing all these, okay, now we're ramping up, knowing all of these diagnoses about myself, like I know now more than I did before, when I just thought I was this sort of semi-failed alien humanoid thing that couldn't quite get a grip on life like everybody else and act like a robot at work and whatever. Yeah, it's becoming, it's something that what am I saying here? Now I've integrated those diagnoses and I can see myself, I can both unpick where some of these problems, the etymology of some of the problems I'm having, and then put it aside and go, okay, well, this is because you're autistic, and you perhaps need to consider that when you want to follow your curiosity and take on another 5 things this month in your calendar. Don't do it because you need more downtime, things like that. It gives me not an excuse. It's easy to sit and to listen to people like me talking about stuff and go, oh, you're just finding excuses for not doing stuff. No, there's, I feel disabled and I also have massive capacity. Those two things are not, can coexist together. My disability means that I sometimes or often struggle to find the edges of my capacity and I exceed it. And then I end up with this hyper or hypo system. Rather similar, I suppose you could say. I mean, people understand what bipolar is and what it looks like as portrayed in the media, especially. I've often said, and I have friends who are bipolar who I've had this discussion with, that I resonate with their experience, and at the same time, I don't experience what they experience in the way they experience it. So I have the somatic symptoms of mania, sort of thing, if you like, and a depression without the mood element. So it's like the mood module in me is placed somewhere else, and that I think is a beautiful thing for me, because I can still enjoy the world when I'm in a sort of somatic depression, burnout, if you like. And it somewhat keeps me a little bit more grounded in the manic state. I don't get paranoid or delusional either. So it's quite complicated, but it's also becoming more clear to me how this all plays out. And what causes it? Well, I'll have a run of feeling really good, and it's okay. Imagine you've just had the flu and been in bed, and you've had to stay in bed for pretty much a week or stay in your house, and your life's gone on without you, and you've sat there and you've seen your friends on social media, or they've called you, or they've dropped stuff off at your door, and you feel like you've not necessarily missed out, but you feel like, oh, life's going on without me. I can't wait to get back at it. I'm excited to get back at it. It'd be nice to be well and I can enjoy freely these things again, even if it's sitting in your garden or whatever. Well, I have that. So I have periods of time when you get this sudden rush of wellness that you're actually quite well again, not manic, you're sleeping well, looking after yourself, eating, exercising, all the rest of it. They're the things that I've realized now I have to keep an eye on. I have to manage that and make sure that I am on track with diet, exercise, blah blah blah, because that keeps me well. I don't know whether it's I'm not learning from my mistakes or whether I just don't know where my limits are, but then things will creep up on me. Will either the outside world will creep in, or I will creep out and become more curious than I have the capacity for, or the world will start to go, oh, there's this, can you do that? Can you do that? Other people's needs come in, needs of my family, friends, whatever. And before you know it, I've got myself in a pickle of life that I actually can't recover from, because there's not enough space between things, or there's a lot to think about. So That kind of happens. Now, if you're watching this video and you're one of my friends and you feel like, oh my gosh, I don't want to burden her, maybe when I ring her and ask to come out for coffee or whatever, or I'm telling her about my problems, that's going to be too much. That's not too much. It's not too much. That's not the way to handle people like me who are telling you this stuff, and that's not going to help me learn. Because what will happen is, if my friends in need or friends who would appreciate a bit of a conversation or something don't do that, then I'm not going to just sit at home and go, oh well, okay, then that's my cue to relax. When I'm in that frame of mind, then I will fill that gap with something else. That's the problem. The problem is not other people's demands on me. The problem is me not remembering my boundaries, my needs, and putting myself in a position where I can look after myself, keep myself safe. So that's just a note about that. So whoops, I've done it again, I guess. And it's with the cold sore and whatever. What happens there is I get it's an emotional build up inside of me. So it doesn't have to be lots of things on a calendar or just rushing around like a busy bee. Sometimes being very physically busy is less discombobulating, if you like, than just having one or two mental loads to deal with. So it's again, it's hard for other people. I've not done well when other people have tried to step in and say, oh, you shouldn't do that, you can't do that, or don't do that. That actually doesn't help me, because there's so much nuance around my capacity. What I'm learning about myself is that my mental capacity, my capacity to keep myself well, isn't a static thing. It does change. So sometimes, some seasons I can do more, some seasons I can do less. To wrap this video up so that we don't go over 20 minutes, I would say that what I'm learning, I'm still got my training wheels on. So while I am finding myself extremely tired, headaches, and not quite looked after myself that well, and having these breakouts or whatever, it's not as bad as it used to be. I recognize when I've pushed my luck too much. I'm recognizing that sooner, not soon enough to stop it all the time, but definitely sooner than it was. And sometimes I feel like I've been able to pull myself in before I've run off with the fairies, sort of thing. But yes, I think one of the things that's been hard for me is to recognize and accept the variability of that capacity. At work this week, I had to write a piece about myself and the person I work with. So we job share, two of us job share. The question that I was posed that I had to answer is about marching on together, and I had to answer that and what that means. And in thinking about what does it feel like to march on at work, that was the cadence of the word marching didn't seem to resonate with me. But then I thought about it a bit more. It seemed quite a masculine, hard word, and I felt that I've come into my soft girl era, I guess, after being quite a little soldier trooper for years. So now I'm in my soft girl. That sounds like I'm down talking girls. I'm not. It's more the feminine. I'm in that sort of the feelings space, and that does have a lot of feminine energy, and it is equally, if not more, powerful in some ways than the cognitive doing, soldiering on thing. So I'm learning that about myself, that the get up and get out and get on with it, just thinking, not feeling, isn't a strength, and that where I'm at now, which is softer and sort of has a more feminine energy about it, and more reflective and thoughtful and timely, giving yourself time and nurturing, is where the true strength comes. But just like a garden that I'm in now, there's seasons to that. So my capacity ebbs and flows like the seasons in a garden. There's times when my ideas can bloom and blossom, but then they also have a time when they retreat and they fall off and they die, or they go back to the soil and become something else rather. So that's what I'm learning, that there's a rhythm to life. I'm learning that, and I really want to be part of that dance, and I want it to feel flowy as opposed to up and down, up and down, up and down. So I'm trying to achieve a flow rather than the way I was imagining it before, which was more of a mental balance. I don't know whether that's been helpful. It certainly felt a little bit helpful to me. I feel like I still could have more to say, but I think that's a gist of it really, and maybe that's enough. Thank you for listening. Oh, There's a train. You see, this is the interruption. It was telling me 20 minutes. Don't go over that because there's a train coming. Chugga. There it is. Sometimes they go on a long time because there's that one isn't, but I think that was just the engine. But sometimes we do have the really long cargo sort of train. It's I actually like that's really nice. Whoa, there's a car horn. It's all going on. See you later.